We want to welcome you back and thank you for watching AccuWeather on this Monday morning. Still so much to cover with Milton.
So many impacts here, most of those being confined across the Florida Peninsula, but we'll even see some impacts here across southeast Georgia, South Carolina, and parts of eastern North Carolina.
Yeah, a lot of folks trying to prepare for what is kind of an unusual track for the western coast of Florida. Typically when we get storms, they tended to make a more southward approach to the north than as they cut across the coastline there. But this one is really going to come more from a westerly angle. So it's going to be coming more directly onshore, which does change things for a bit.
It does. Huge impacts here. So we want to continue our coverage with the extreme impacts. And because of those, a state of emergency has been declared in Florida, as we've been checking in with Bill with the mass evacuations that are going to be starting, and the life-threatening storm surge now up to as high as 20 feet, which I'll show you in our exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Damaging wind, widespread structural damage, down trees, power outages that could be long-lasting, and many parts of the southeast just got their power restored, including into Florida and across southeast Georgia. There's the exclusive AccuWeather forecast. As I mentioned, all the way up to 20 feet is possible here. We're focusing in on that zone around Sarasota, Longboat Key, Siesta Key, where we'll see what folks in that area have never seen before with storm surge this high. Huge impacts when it comes to storm surge. Fort Myers 6 to 10 feet wind.
Well, thanks for joining us on AccuWeather early. I'm Melissa Constanzer.
I'm Ariella Scalese. Our special coverage of Hurricane Milton continues. As you can see, the eye path behind us, a Category 4 hurricane set to become a Category 5 hurricane and making landfall across the west coast of Florida as a major hurricane.
And this is going to have significant impacts for the state of Florida, especially, though, like you said, other states will be involved with at least a few impacts from this.
I do want to let you know western North Carolina not impacted from Milton. Our pattern does stay quieter across the interior southeast.
Yeah. Some of these damages, some of these places, though, have had damage from Helene, interestingly enough. All right, we're really just setting the stage for Milton, which we'll cover because there's two different factors here. There's Milton to talk about, and there's actually a low ahead of it that we'll cover in just a moment. First up, let's talk about Milton. We know that it is already strengthening there. It's a major Category 4 hurricane at this point in time. There will be further strengthening as it goes through the Gulf of Mexico in the upcoming hours. So we are expecting it to get to that Category 5 status. And then from there, when we look at this storm, what will be unique is that perpendicular cross to the coastline and how that will impact storm surge. First up, as we talk about it offshore, where it's still a very strong hurricane, it's going to be pushing that water in, especially around the Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda area. These are some of the spots I'm most concerned about. I know a lot of people have boats here on the water. A lot of those water channels continue to go through miles inland, and that's going to be some of those factors that could lead to significant flooding with the storm surge. And here it is as we go through that landfalling time, assuming that landfalling is somewhere in that Tampa Bay area and not farther north, though it could be, and that means Tampa, you're in this risk. If it's farther south, obviously Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, you're still in this effect where we have that onshore wind continuing even at the point of landfall. Then after that, the winds will start to shift out of the west-northwest, but look at what it's doing. It's just keeping that water from draining out, so we won't really see the relief of the outflow going out with all that water changing out. It will at least stay locked into some of those bays and channels, if not continue to pump more water in, unfortunately, and hold it at a constant level. So these will be the challenges that we have associated with that storm surge. Currently, though, there are still a lot of showers ongoing. Other creates more nuisances with this challenge to leave. So these are some of the factors that we're looking at. I want to take you to well, I want to take you back to that radar because, again, it is pretty wet here as we beyond just rain with this wind, a huge concern, and like I said, the storm surge, big factor.
Yeah, and wind is the whole reasoning behind different watches and warnings up across Florida, and that is going to be one of the lead-in factors to this storm. Not to draw comparisons to Helene, but remember, North Carolina had rain from a storm system before they put Helene into the mix. That's kind of the case with Florida, although Florida is better equipped to handle some of the amounts of rain, lesser amounts of rain that they'll get compared to North Carolina. So again, what we're talking about in Florida is kind of the nuisance of trying to travel and get to those evacuation points. Here we are looking at this eye path, and as it moves through, let me just say the winds will be substantial. This is going to lead to plenty of power outages as we talk about more than 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts possible on land. And of course, there's going to be that risk for tornadoes. We've seen that time and time again, so there will still be those factors. Power outages look to be fairly widespread across. Flooding will be a factor to just
get out and about early. Evening hours here, whenever landfall may exactly occur, you can see how those winds are pretty persistently onshore. Even as this storm pushes its way a little farther off towards the northeast, look at how that wind orientation is. Even if it doesn't come quite onshore, it's not going to let the water drain out of a lot of these locations, especially from Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, and many of these areas. A lot of people have backyards with boats there. So they're all on the canals. They're all connected by these waterways, which will be extremely challenging, I think, for some areas with storm surge. All right, we do want to continue our coverage
with the landfall at a Category 5. So again, a Category 3, as Melissa showed you. I just wanted to issue that correction.